All right.
Yeah.
Welcome
Great.
everyone today. Welcome to the second webinar of Zirian and Jordan as the Self-Work Chefs. We've had one before that was a pure webinar.
Yeah.
We did not like it that much. It was too much one-directional. So we still call it a webinar, but there will be more interaction, an exercise with you, some feedback or inputs from you on which parts we'll put the focus on. So it's a webinar in that regard.
Yeah. So it's just on the web. That's fine. Right. So just a small introduction. I want to introduce Jordan to all of you. And Jordan and I used to work together before, and we've done many transformations, agile transformations together. And I have to say that if you talk about self-organization, Jordan is your guy because he knows a lot about autonomy, about organizational settings, and how they all connect to each other. And he also does that with a bit of flair. And in this flair, he also uses serious gaming a lot, just to make sure that everybody is in line. Everybody has a learning effect as well. And one thing that Jordan told me, and which stays in my mind, is says, Zirian, we don't do tryouts, we do small experiments. So the experimental part is really part of Jordan. And having said that, we can guarantee you that none of our workshops or webinars are the same in the session. So we have to change at least one thing just to experiment.
Which is immediately our downfall. Zirian is also really creative mind. One thing that's I really see him add a lot of value is he's quite skilled at cross-cultural dynamics. So taking into account, especially in the active self-organization, different starting points, different backgrounds, how culture influences your thinking and your actions. That is one of his core skills, I would say. He does a lot. He's in love with Scrum, and I would always say Scrum is in love with him. They make a good couple, I would say. And he does a lot in that regard, and he combines it with transformation, helping organizations step into the future, or maybe first step into the current times. Enough about us, I think.
Yeah.
The reason why we hope we know something about self-organization is because we done 10-ish self-organization experiments together. Yeah, we facilitated, co-created, and not just with the two of us, but with the people involved, to help self-selection become more of a self-designing self-organization event. And over the course of those things, we uncovered some common patterns, things that came up all the time in different contexts, in different self-organization experiments we ran. And we found also in mentoring others, hey, there's value in these patterns. So we set off to combine them into something that we hope to share with you today.
Yeah, exactly. So let us start. Instead of talking about self-organization, let's just start with an exercise on self-organization.
Ooh,
that's a nice one.
That's a good opening.
Yeah.
And for that exercise to work, I would like to ask everyone to unmute. If there's some noise on the background, don't feel bad about it. If someone is drilling, then maybe stay on mute. But in general, it's okay if there's a little bit of background noise that is not hurting the exercise in any way. I see someone closing their window. Awesome preparation. Thanks, thank Jorg. And for the other people listening in, as I said, feel free to unmute, and if you're comfortable, having the camera on will also help for this exercise. Not mandatory, but helpful. All right. The exercise is, we'll start off pretty simple. I'll count up, 1, 2, 3, and then I'll say clap. And as soon as I say clap, I want everyone to clap. So that's all for the first part. All right. So if everyone's ready, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Clap. Very small example of how leadership works. I am modeling the behavior, and it doesn't really matter what I say, because a totally different thing happened. But what did we observe? Feel free to chime in.
Well, the first thing I noticed was that the video was changing to somebody else who was the first who clapped. So so you vanished from my screen. So that was the first thing I noticed. And well, maybe there is also some delay there. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, but I just clapped, and but I didn't hear my own clap. That was a little bit annoying.
So that made it really clear for you. Somebody at least clapped. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Paulus. Other people would like to share an observation.
Yeah, I would see that it's visually, it's really, yeah, let's say it's how do you call it, mirroring, perhaps, that I can see you clapping, and I'll follow immediately just to keep connected.
Like Jordan said, if you talk about leadership, to what extent did you really hear what he said, what to do, and to what extent were you an example of what you said you were going to do?
I was a bad example of the exercise I just told you how it would go. Yep. I did not stick to my own agreements, right? Mm-hmm. And as Jorg said, yeah, I followed you, because that's kind of the default behavior. You follow the leader. If the leader does something, it's probably the right behavior.
Yep.
This is an important thing to take into account when you start with self-organization. What is your intent? What are you saying? And what is your behavior? What are you really doing? What is happening there? And how big is the gap? Are you even aware of the gap? And it's important here to know that leadership is not about a position, but much more about a skill that everyone can take up leadership. And even if the rules say A and you do B, other people look at you and they might follow suit. If she or he does B, then B must be okay to do too, right? I'm not the only one doing B, so we'll get away with B.
Yeah.
You need
Jordan, I didn't clap. First of all, I'm in an office. How do you say it? Garden. And I was also like, yeah, why would I clap? If you say clap, why would I do it?
I think thanks for chiming in. And I sense two parts in there. One is the environment. What if the behavior that's asked from you might not be comfortable for you in your current context or the environment you're in, like an office space? You don't just randomly clap. And the other one is you're just telling me what to do. You're not telling me the goal or the value in there. So wonderful, short, one sentence from Martin. That's immediately showing, whoa, there's so much more layers into these kind of things. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So we did a little practice about self-organization and impact it has on organizations, on individuals. And like Jordan said, we have done dozens of self-organization experiments in which we have learned a lot together, but also separately. And we've been going through textbooks and to all events and talk to professionals like you and to see if we could find a common pattern, what is going on in organizations where they self-organize successfully and they don't self-organize successfully. And actually, we've come up with a model, the ladder of self-organization. And Yeah. So that's what you.
Sorry.
That's good. That's good. That's what you see in front of you. And if we look at this ladder, you see that everything, of course, has purpose. But just like any other ladder, you cannot start from the top, right? So we have to start from the beginning. And what you see is that. Okay. So in the lower part, is basically the first part of self-organization. That's actually the self-executing. This is the part where team members are working. They can design how they can do the work. They can design when to do the work and things like that. And this is usually, if you look at agile transformations, where people are scrumming, for example. So they have this autonomy to decide when to have those events and so on and so on. And also within here you have multiple levels. You can have the startup scrum, or actually doing bad scrum, mechanical scrum, all the way to upholding the scrum values and really be autonomous in how and what to do. Usually this part is more or less the operational part, and that's what you see on the right side. Yeah, it's coming.
Not updating.
Yeah,
Oh.
that it is. So you see a lot in agile organization that teams are allowed to talk about operational stuff, how to run the day-to-day business as we speak. And if we look one step further, you see that organizations are also experimenting with self-selecting. That means that team members can decide on, okay, which team do I want to be? What is my personal growth? What are my skills? How do I fit in? But still, that's all decided within the organization, how the teams are set up. But you can say, I don't like this team, I prefer this team. So that is the second part. And also here you see different stages in it, because you can say that, all right, so they can decide on which team they can be, but are they also allowed to do the hiring and the firing, for example? That's all part of the self-selecting within an organization. And you might say that it's not only operational, but also tactical. So which skills do we need? How do we go about hiring and firing, for example? And if you go one step further, that's what we have noticed, that's self-designing within the organization. And that's basically that every employee is co-creating how the organizational setup looks like. Which teams do we need? What should be their purpose? How many team members do we need? With which skills? And so on and so on. That's basically designing your new organization to become more lean and agile. And having said that, as team members, you are also not only working on tactical, but also working a lot on strategic level. Because if a team doesn't really fit in the strategic part of the organization, well, do we still need that team? And is there management to decide? Well, if you are on the level of self-selecting, yes. If you're on the level of self-designing, then it's the team members are involved as well. And the top part of the ladder is actually about it's about how do you fulfill your purpose. So can you, for example, just start a new organization part because you believe in it? Are you allowed to run experiments? So are you self-directing? Yes, yes or no? And this is a very tricky part, because not a lot of organizations are in self-directing yet. A few are all self-designing. More and more agile organizations are experimenting with self-selecting. And a lot of organizations nowadays using the self-execution part. And the funny thing is, all right, but every time we challenge a model and they are stacked, we tend to think that it's a competition. We need to get the top level as fast as possible. But is actually, I want to show you something. So you have a fire truck. And you know the purpose of a fire truck is to turn out the fire or help a cat from a tree. And you have this ladder. Depending on how high you are and what your purpose is, you decide how far you go. And that's the same actually with the ladder of self-organization. Depending on your purpose within the organization, what you want to do, you decide how high you should go. Having said that, I want to show you a video of a self-designing experiment which we did a few years ago, which ended up in self-selection.
Vandaag hebben we Tribe Selectiedag van KPN TV.
Nou, we gaan de chapters vandaag zeg maar, laten vormen door de mensen zelf. Een jaar geleden zijn we begonnen met de transformatie naar Agile. En we gaan nu beginnen met de afronding daarvan door te starten met de chapter-indeling.
Deze Agile transformatie is gekozen voor een indeling volgens het Spotify Engineering Culture. Dat betekent dat we uitgaan van één tribe met meerdere squads, dus teams waarin het resultaat geleverd wordt. Iedereen die in een squad zit, zit ook in een vakontwikkelingsgroep, een chapter.
We hebben gekozen voor een dag waarin we zelfselectie gebruiken. Waarin de mensen zichzelf gaan indelen in teams voor het ontwikkelen van hun vakmanschap.
De zelfselectie, het ging bijna vanzelf. We liepen ook steeds voor, zeg maar, in de family waar ik zat. De chaptercoach was al bepaald toen het chapter bepaald was. Echt gewoon super gaaf. Gewoon.
De dag is eigenlijk opgedeeld in een aantal rondes, waarin in de eerste ronde eigenlijk geïnformeerd wordt. Waarbij het leiderschapsteam inzicht geeft in welke chapters er zijn.
Wat we dus willen doen is mensen eigenlijk zelf laten kiezen waar kan ik nou het meeste groeien en leren. Met gave dingen bezig zijn waar ze echt energie van krijgen en intrinsiek gemotiveerd zijn. En dat gaan ze vanzelf weer teruggeven in de leverkant van de organisatie, de squads.
Co-creëren met de mensen, dus input vragen van hoe kijk jij tegen chapters aan, wat zie je voor je en de gesprekken erover aangaan.
Dus iedereen wist vrij goed waar die in thuis wil horen. En dat is heel erg leuk.
Dus het is heel squad-overstijgend. En dat we in ieder geval een doel voor ogen hebben om nog beter te worden in ons vak.
Ik moet eerlijk zeggen dat er beter en heldere chapters uit zijn gekomen dan dat ik van tevoren had gedacht. En met name ook om de energie die ik zie en de passie die ik zie bij de mensen die echt in de chapters nu zitten. Ze hebben bewust ervoor gekozen.
Zelfselectie is gewoon, doe het. Heb vertrouwen in je mensen. Bereid het voor, maar laat het vooral los. Mensen zijn super intelligent, weten wat ze kunnen en wat ze willen. Echt, vertrouw op de mensen. Ze weten het beste.
What you notice is this was the aftermovie of a self-selection event. What actually happened is that in the beginning, when we started, management said, well, you know, we already have the plan and this is how it's going to be. These people are going to be put in these chapters because, of course, the Scrum Masters need to be with the Scrum Masters and we know the developers, which area they have. So let's start. And within 1 week, it's going to be done and we can implement it. Luckily, we were there and we started with an experiment and saying, well, it's of course really good that we already think we know what to do, but how does it impact and how does that influence the willingness of the team members to really join? Will it be their idea? Will they feel involved? Well, the answer was no, but how can we still do it? So what we did, we prepared, we co-created, and actually the preparation phase with all the team members involved in separate sessions was set up for 1 month. And eventually we had a self-selection day where around, let's see, 150 colleagues joined. And actually some of them were sick and some of them just couldn't make it because they had, they had obligations at home, for example. And it is very funny because those team members, they were not used to that autonomy, but they liked it. And despite of what the managers thought before, they made the right choices for themselves. And actually one of the managers was the manager of a Scrum Master, and he came to us and he was like, during the break, he was, it's not going well. We need to stop. Okay, well, why do we need to stop? Yeah, I noticed that 4 or 5 Scrum Masters are not joining the Scrum Master chapters. They are doing something else, like product owner or development or CI/CD. And we were like, yeah, so that's good. That's awesome. That means it makes your talk with these Scrum Masters very, very easy, because are they really involved and are they really happy in the Scrum Master role? Yes or no? So eventually you will notice that people tend to do the things that they love as well, with regards of the organization part, how that fits in, and how it fits in within the organization. So that we will be covering later on in this webinar.
Funny addition to the story. So he was frustrated in the morning also by the answer I gave him. Yeah, that's wonderful. Save you some hard talks. And he was like, you're not helping me now. My Scrum Masters are walking away. In the afternoon, he came back and he said, I hate you for being right, but I see what you were aiming at. All the Scrum Masters that are choosing a different chapter, that are going back to technical parts or something else, are Scrum Masters that I had my doubt if they were really passionate about what they did. So that was a wonderful example of, as you said, of self-organization and the law of 2 feet. People talk with their feet. Hey, this is not the place where I should be in this organization. I can get or give much more value in a different part of the organization.
And also for one of the team members, it was, like I said, they weren't used to it. One of them actually phoned home and talked to his wife, said, I'm supposed to be in a chapter now. What should I do? So it's also new for the employees as well, for the team members as well.
Rahul, is the team dev team or the entire Scrum team? It's not. I would not tie it specifically to Scrum. So when we talk about a team, we would say it's a group of people who have a common purpose, and it could be the purpose could be around knowledge sharing in a chapter or a guild or a community of practice. It could be a team that has a proper product. It could be a team that delivers a service. So it's any team. And if you look at the Scrum terms, I would say it's the full Scrum team involving the Scrum Master and the product owner. But just want to be clear, it's not only the Scrum type of teams we're talking about here. Culture and leadership. Sorry,
which questions do we have more?
Culture and leadership are key in this picture, right? Then a Dutch joke. Let's keep it at that. If you turn the letter sideways, does it turn into a Kanban system? Thoughts. Could you maybe share a bit more of your thinking behind this? The question was from Todd.
Yeah, it just it's like self-directing and all that. It seems like that direction would come from like the upstream Kanban or the upstream, and if a team had like influenced over that, that you could show that in a Kanban system.
Mm-hmm. And your question is, does it become a Kanban system as in the maturity levels in Kanban, or more like the flow part in Kanban?
I guess more like the flow and ownership of that.
I think in this case, if it would be a flow, it would have a done state. And a self-organization, there's no done state, because with each change within the organization, like I said, in this ladder, like we have here, there's no right or wrong. It doesn't matter if you are this high or just very low. It's about setting the purpose within your organization. If, for example, you have a lot of new team members and you ask them immediately to think about strategic decisions, well, that could lead to some undesired outcomes. So I would say, yeah, there's no end state in this.
No, in comparison to a Kanban system used by a product or service team, the in-between deliverables might not have value. And here, if you turn it sideways, you don't need to climb the ladder all the way to the top to already reap value from what's in there. So I see the metaphor where you're going. Depending on what you focus on, it might be right or not right. Hope that that clarifies it a bit. Next question. The Spotify model focused in the past on autonomy a bit much, the inventor said later on. How do you make sure alignment is happening? This is wonderful, wonderful getting Spotify in the mix. Actually, the case you just saw around the chapters, I spent a week at Spotify to learn and play with the coaches and the organization there. And one of the managers said, wow, you've done the Spotify model, but then better, because we solved some of their organizational constraints. And an important one is related to what you ask here, and that is we used autonomy to design the alignment. So instead of forcing alignment on top of autonomous cats and trying to herd them all together, we told the people, hey, you have full autonomy to design the ways in which you align. And once you've agreed on that, people have their stake in the game. They are involved. They are willing to take ownership because, hey, they co-created a system that they're willing to step into. So by involving them into setting the constraints for alignment, you kind of build in the alignment with the autonomy. That's at least our experience with really involving already in the co-creation phase of something like this.
And actually also have experience where the self-selection went miserably wrong because we didn't do alignment on team level in co-creation design. So we thought we had a problem, Scrum Masters, product owners, agile coaches. We organized a beautiful day and we had it all in front of us, create new teams based on customer journey. It's wow. And then the day started and they said, what is actually the problem here? Yeah, you're not communicating, it's not efficient. Oh, I don't get it because I call this other team every day. So I don't see what's going on. So we went back to the drawing table, and funny enough, 3 months later, from the teams themselves started that they needed to collaborate and rethink their purposes within the team. So that was really fun to experience.
Wonderful experience.
Yeah.
I would hope everyone has a field experience like that, because that's the quickest way to learn, I would say.
Let's do one more question, and then at the end we still have more time for questions as well.
Yeah. So let's a quick one, a question to the story. So I assume that's about a video. The squatter dev teams were already there. Yes. So the product teams were already started, or the service teams. The chapter, so really enabling them to have time for learning, was introduced at this day. As the previous organization was like most corporates, yeah, you have 2 days or €1,000 budget for learning every year. That's not what I call learning. And to the other question, yes, what is involved in preparation of such a day will definitely be discussed later. And we have a short break in between. Going more in depth on the designing and co-creation part will be after the break. So we hope to see you back after that. Wonderful to hear from. And that was actually the last question. So that went.
Yeah. So having spoken about the ladder of self-organization, we did a small exercise, get on leadership. Now let's do an actual exercise which takes a little longer on self-selecting.
What we're going to do here is we're going to ask all of you to self-organize into these groups. And so over here for the exercise, we'll go to in a minute. We'll ask everyone. It's probably easier if you adjust your screen name a bit. It's not necessary, but then you have to talk, and that might be scary in an online session. So over here. What you see is we have four boxes, and those boxes have some boundaries. So, for example, in box A, we would like to see someone with blue eyes, someone with brown eyes, someone with hazel eyes, one person with green eyes, and one person with gray eyes. Second blocks.
By the way, if you don't know how hazel color looks like, it's this color-ish.
So light brownish.
Light brownish.
I would say.
Yeah, it's very delicious though.
Light brown eyes are very delicious, is what Sirian just said. Anyway, as Faye is already taking the lead, wonderful show of leadership. Faye, green eyes, female, and she put herself over here. So, we'll set the timer to 3 minutes.
There are some guiding principles though. You have to divide equally based on gender.
Yes.
And the group size should be 5 to 7, and that's still possible.
Yeah, yeah. Should make it 4 to 6, I think. Yeah.
Let's do that. I need to text.
So let's put down. No, even like this.
Hey.
Sian is moved. Jordan is moved. All right, wonderful. Dragging us in.
That's going to be nice. Okay, just for our just for us to know, who decided to play the manager and have us in different groups?
That's wonderful. We'll get to it in the debrief.
So in Group B, we now have not an equally gender division anymore. Before it was there, and then Paulos and Saskia switched, and now it doesn't fit anymore. So maybe making some advertisement in Group B for some female people to join.
There were already 2 blues, that's why I left.
Now we are also 3 blue eyes. So we need a female with brown eyes, if anyone would like to join.
I'm just trying to catch up with you guys. I mean, so much yellows there. I mean, post-its.
Someone moved me. I didn't agree to that.
Talking about autonomy. They touched you. That's not okay.
Oh, sorry, that was me.
in group D, it's like max 3 people. So I would say we can keep this as like the lowest priority and try to fill out the rest, and then group D can be like the whatever is left.
If you're done before the time is over, you can also let us know. Then we can rejoice and end our day sooner. We might end our day 30 seconds sooner.
So in Group B, is someone of the male people with blue eyes, Paulos or Frank? Would you like to leave? Sounds mean, but...
I was first.
Invitation to leave, that's a weird approach.
Nice. I'm reframing the order to an invitation.
Yeah.
But does this fit? I don't. If one leaves from B, then A becomes to everyone is already at its max of people, right?
Yeah.
So I really think it doesn't fit. We have to eliminate people from the teams at all.
Well, I can move to a group C because there are boundaries, but not a limit of people. So
yeah, 1 gray, 1 green, right?
Bye bye B.
Oh, but could be more. Oh, the rest doesn't
Then B
mind.
could
Doesn't
also be
matter.
more. If it's only minimum, then also B could be fine.
Oh yeah. Oh, then it's
Good
okay.
Oh, it's a
question.
minimum. Oh.
Yeah, only D has a max.
All right.
But
Okay,
if
then
people
B was
feel really
also fine.
comfortable in B, who are we to send them away?
So I'm taking my invitation backwards.
So
But the groups should be max 5 guys, and there are more in the first one.
Yeah, the gender
Wonderful.
did. The gender division is not very well.
I think we
Yes.
saw it settle for now. Groups are, well, kind of equally divided. Let's see if the genders are also equally divided. So in the first group, I see 2 female, 3 males. Oh, 2 males. Oh, someone ran off in the last moment. I don't. From the back, I think it was Rahul, but not sure. So 2 males, 2 females in Group A. Group B, we have 2 females, 2 males. Group C, we have 1 female, 3 males. And Group D, we have 3 males, 3 males. So genders could be more divided, as the females are mainly focused in A and B, and D is missing any females. But decent score so far. The other guiding principle, so the green one at the top, that one is also met. 4 and 3 people in these groups. And then we look at boundaries. So the guiding principles were kind of overarching over all the groups. And if you look at the boundaries, we put them on eye color for this exercise, and we see what happened there. Green, blue, brown, blue. So there's 2 blues in A, more than we needed. But we missed some of the others. If you look at B, brown, brown, blue, blue, that one is a perfect match. If you look at C, there's gray, there's a green and a gray. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And D, it only had a boundary on the amount of people. So in this regard, group A might need a bit more shaping, or if eye color is something you could train, some training. But for now, pretty decent. Asking the group, what did you observe while self-organizing? What kind of behaviors or comments took your attention?
People do have a lot of opinion about other people in groups or not in groups.
Mm-hmm. And what effect did it have on you?
Not really, I just observed it.
All right. Thanks. Other observations?
I thought it was interesting that at some point we started to sort of renegotiate the restraints and say, oh, it's a minimum, not a maximum, which wasn't clear apparently before. And now we said, okay, this is the guiding principle we're going to take, which allowed more space for everyone.
Yeah, I think building on that, the maximum was easier to understand than the minimum.
So that could have been clarified a bit more.
For me, that was a bit about assumptions. So I was the one just taking the lead and saying, okay, something doesn't fit here because that was my assumption, and I didn't clarify it. I didn't ask if anyone else sees it like that. So I just made assumptions.
Or the leader.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting, Zirjan, did you put yourself in TV? How come you ended up there?
I don't know. I wasn't even part of it. I was on a holiday that day.
Oh, wonderful. Well, welcome to TV. This is your new colleagues.
Yeah.
And you love the purpose of TV, right? Right?
Of course.
Right?
Yeah, I love to be around diverse people and brown and blue eyes.
And this is why we have a great company culture. So what happened there could have, of course, now we're making a joke out of it, but someone even mentioned it halfway, hey, somebody is moving me. And this is a thing that you want to be really clear about when you do an exercise around self-organization, or when you do a practice around self-organization. As soon as other people start optimizing the system for you, you lose all agency. You have no sense of autonomy anymore. It's taken from you. Someone else makes decisions for you. And even in this exercise, by the voice, you hear, hey, someone doesn't like to be moved. And that's just a silly exercise in some webinar. Imagine this is about your team. Imagine you come back from a holiday and, oh wait, I switched teams. What happened here?
Yeah.
How could this?
Yeah, actually, that happens exactly at a client I am right now. Another team didn't deliver a project, so management believed that she is the best fit to help get results. So when she came back, the first day was back to our team, and on that day, they had to tell her, okay, from tomorrow on, you'll be on a different team. She didn't like it. I can tell you that.
After the break, if you're interested, as you have agency in choosing what we will focus on, we can tell a bit more about this concept. And the metaphor we use for this concept, voila, is one of boxes and blocks. And the boxes you can see as the different teams that your organization is made of, and different teams have different needs. So this team needs a square, a star, and an oval, while this team needs a diamond and a triangle, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's a 5-sided pentagon. So different teams have different needs. The teams are connected in some way, so this team might have some relationship to this team and some relationships to this team, but this team has little relationship to this team. They are too far apart. And this is a simple organization with just 6 teams. Now imagine this being an organization with 20 teams. Then you still see, teams have quite some other teams that they have a relationship to. But there are also a lot of teams that they don't have a relationship to. And this is one of the key concepts in trying to break down the complexity in self-organization. Because this team doesn't really need to know about what's happening in this team on the back. This team does need to know a bit and have some transparency and insight in the choices being made in the neighboring teams. And that way you can make sure, without everyone needing to know everything, you're still able to get as much information as is relevant for the choices you make in a self-organization process.
And maybe if you decide to focus more on the boxes and blocks, we'll also go about, because there's also a pattern that we see that not all the teams meet the boundaries. So what do you do in that case? If you need skills and you don't have them. So maybe we can focus on that later on. Because what we have been covering so far is we did a small experiment with the clap, talking about the leadership on multiple levels. We talked about the self-selection ladder, how each part is helping the organization to move forward. And we did the exercise with actually self-organizing, or basically self-selecting into the teams and what it did to us and what are the differences between guiding principles and boundaries. What we are going to do after the break is we're going to start cooking, because we have a menu here.
Lovely.
So what you will see is that we have the starters over there, the main course, and the dessert, and we will focus on each one of them. And just to make sure this is a very interactive session, we are going to ask you which topic you want to you want to highlight and dig deeper into it.
Yeah, so we do some voting, and based on that, focus on certain parts of this whole menu, and we'll explain the structure of the menu after the break.
Yeah. Jordan already mentioned is we have done a lot of self-organization experiments, and we found common patterns, and we decided to use those patterns in writing a book. And then we decided, well, maybe it's not really about writing a book, so let's create a community platform, and that's what we are using now. But actually, our main goal is just to share knowledge about how to to do a self-organization, which steps are there and which practices can you use easily?
One thing to give you an idea about this, the bigger setup here is the starters is really what you do in preparation and co-creation. So this is all leading up to a self-organization event, which could be the kickoff of a self-organization culture. And you could start at some point, do it more continuously. But where most organizations are coming from, starting with continuous self-organization, redesigning your org structure, starting teams, dismantling teams is probably too far of a bridge too far. So preparing for your first event in this regard and exploring that space will take some effort. Then the main course, what we define as the main course is really the self-organization event itself. And the desserts are really what's the aftercare. So after the event, how do you support the teams to really start in a new setup, to rearrange the team rooms, maybe new facilities they'll need, things like that to really go into desserts, but also more internally oriented. So do you want to do a debrief for evaluation? Do you want to make an after movie that might have some other effects, but we'll get to that in a moment.
You also see some pluses, some stars. Those are, in our belief, mandatory processes. So mandatory steps you need to do. First, we will be talking about starters. And what you see is actually in the beginning, if you have an idea of changing your organization, you first need to create a sense of urgency. And the thing is that, okay, how do you communicate about that? How do you create a sense of urgency? Why is it so important? And after you have a sense of urgency is to focus really about what is then our purpose that we want to achieve. So we know that we need to change, but why do we need to change? What is our end goal? If you have that, then you can co-create the design. And that's basically, so how is our organization going to look like? Who should be involved, who shouldn't be involved yet. And after you have done that and you want to invite people to join, it's very important to level the playing field in knowledge, in basically everything, because as management, you have maybe knowledge, you have maybe information within the organization that others don't have. And in order to be successful in designing your organization and involving the team members, they need to have the same information to make correct judgment. And then if you have that, then you think about the organization structure. That's what Jordan just mentioned, the boxes. So that's the self-organization part. And then you think about the self-design. So which part, which people do we need, which roles do we need, and not in the sense of Jordan should go in team A, no, but more in the sense of, okay, Jordan is an agilist with self-organization, and yeah, that's something that we need. And then you think about the course design for the main course. So how are we going to do the event? So yeah, so this whole event, and of course you also need to think about the design of the dessert, and that's this part.
All right, so I see sense of urgency has quite some things going on. I see some with purpose, some with main course design. I always like to approach it with, I call it the change triangle, because for me it is what's involved in change. It doesn't mean this is the only change triangle that's out there. But there isn't a specific order, but the sense of urgency, I always put it at the top. Here I put ability, and here I put willingness. And this really defines your change potential. Yeah, it's visible. So this really defines the change potential. How much can you really achieve? And All of them are able to, let's take a different color. All of them are able to be somewhere between the middle, which would be 0, all the way up to say 100% or a score you put to it. And as soon as something is only at 50%, if you look at the area, you went down to 25% of your change capability. And this means the only thing you have a hard control over as a leader, as a facilitator, as a coach, is being crystal clear about the sense of urgency. Because that's the one that's coming from the organization. That's the one that's coming from the environment. The ability you can offer people for training and guidance to be more able to, for example, know more about digital marketing, or become more confident in DevOps practices and the culture that goes with it. The willingness, you can only invite people and give them help them with the confidence, create the environment in which makes them more willing. But you can really make them more willing. It has to come from them. The sense of urgency is the one you have most control over. And that is that you need to be as crystal clear as possible about the why. That's really the only thing you want to focus on throughout the whole trajectory. Why? Why are we doing this? Why do we think this is needed? What will happen if we don't? Are there other options? And an important thing to keep in mind, same goes for agility, for example. Self-organization can never really be the goal. Self-organization might be an important means to reach your goal, or to get into it. And a sense of urgency is something that you can also already start co-creating. So you can have a draft version of market changes. For example, this year, COVID, it gave a lot of companies the clearest sense of urgency they ever had. Some companies might already be in not so clear waters before, but they might have hard trouble saying, oh, why do we need to invest in remote working? Why should we invest in better communication tools? Oh, why should we have some arrangement for people in their home offices? And in one moment, everybody was communicating about the sense of urgency. So that helped a lot of companies finally step into some of the adjustments they were hoping to make. There's quite a lot of decisions you are going to make over the course of this introducing a more self-organization culture. And the main course design is involving people, and doesn't have to be everyone. Our recommendation would be to be transparent about it and at least offer people the chance for feedback, but already take people along in what will happen during the main course, and what will happen during the self-organization event. And no matter how high you climbed on the ladder of self-organization, so we had self-executing as one of the first sports. Then a bit higher up, we had self-selecting, and that is having some agency over which team to join or leave, or maybe which team members join and leave your team. Above that, we had self-designing. And even when you do self-designing and are involved in starters, then there's still a part where you do self-selection into the thing you designed. So as with a normal ladder, you can't jump on the ladder and start on the third sport. Yes, you can. Nobody would recommend using a ladder like that. So we will also not recommend using a ladder like that. So you have to go through the lower parts of the ladder to reach medium or higher parts of the ladder. And the same here. If you do self-designing, there is self-selection in there. And the main course design is taking people along. What will the day look like? What kind of things will we do there? What kind of things do you feel are necessary? Do we already want to celebrate the start of new teams? Do we want exercise in there to start to get to know your new teammates? Is it important we already grab our agendas and plan some team events? What do we need at the start of the day? Can we just start off because we're a smallest collection of teams and we're connected enough? or should we do a recap for everyone and make sure everyone knows what's going on? So those kind of things, involving people up front in what will happen there, will also help you in the types of people that are on the extremes. And on one extreme, you have the ambassadors. They're eager, they want to jump on, they want to add a lot of value, and they want to see what's possible there. You offer them a platform to make them feel heard and give their contribution. On the other hand of the spectrum, you might have some people who are more reluctant. I'm not sure about this whole thing. And I don't think you took this or this into account. If you encounter this kind of behavior on the event, it will be quite hard to manage it. Those people might derail what's going on. They might influence the energy in the room in an impactful way. But the most important thing is these people want to be heard. These people care about what's going on. These people might have something valuable that might make the design of the day better. So you're also offering the people on this part of the spectrum a voice. You're making them feel heard, and the thing they care about is taken into account and hopefully integrated into the design of the day. And that might, at least I've seen it in practice, that might help them actually flip over to the ambassador side, because now they believe in what we're doing. If you take this and this into account, I'm on board. Okay, but now I'm dedicated to make this work. So that's some of the benefits of co-creating also the main course. Zayan, looking at the time, how are we?
Still have time for 1 or 2 questions.
All right.
Let's see. So, yeah, one of the questions that we have here is, I think these are aligned. How to make people see your sense of urgency, and do you have any concrete practice ideas to collaboratively work out a sense of urgency, which work well?
All right. And the second question, do you have any?
Do you have any concrete practices or ideas to collaboratively work out a sense of urgency?
Yeah, I think it absolutely relates to the how to help people see the sense of urgency. The most straightforward way is telling it, and I think this is what a lot of companies have been doing for decades. Telling is not really working that well. People are prone to think, yeah, that's important for you, but how does it affect me? How does it relate to the work I do? How does it impact my team or department? So for one, step away from telling and step into communicating, step into discussing, step into inviting, asking people, start much more open, and it could be open conversations with guidance, with a facilitator, with a specific practice for that conversation. It could be an open space. It could also be something like liberating structures, which is a set of facilitation methods, if I might put it like that, that help really to give everyone an equal voice and be able to make people heard, but not only make them feel heard, but also include their voice into what's happening. So if you look at more concrete practices, there could be inquisitive inquiry, open space, liberating structures. There's multiple things you can pick in those galleries from facilitation methods. But in general, it's really involving people. In, hey, what do you see with your customers? What do you see with your part of the market? Any things you're running into, and not running into, yeah, IT is blah, 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 or marketing is always, but running into in a bigger holistic context of the market, of the world, competitors, etc.
What you also see happening a lot is that top management, they see the sense of urgency, they collect all the middle managers and talk about, okay, this is the sense of urgency, go to your teams and communicate it. Yeah, and very often happens because we as team members, we are bright people, right? We start asking questions about, well, how is it about this? And middle management doesn't have the answer to it. So one practice that you could easily use if you are being asked to communicate on their behalf, is just tell them, well, I think it's more valuable if you come with me to the teams and communicate it yourself. And maybe take like a half an hour, but at least they hear it from the first hand and they can communicate directly. So I think that that's also about the openness here.
Yeah. But let's first give them a quick overview of what they see over here.
Yeah.
So for the main course, we go to the middle part, and as we said, this is really the event you've been preparing and working up to. Again, if you have a very advanced company in the regard of self-organization, you probably inherently do these things. If it's one of your first times or you're starting to get into it, then it's really helpful to use a structure like this. For the main course, so the self-selection event, there's a part that we call setting the stage. Setting the stage is just welcoming everyone, maybe going back to the sense of urgency. So why are we doing this? Going back to the purpose. So what do we hope to achieve by doing it? Making sure that everyone is again in the right frame of mind, knowing why we're here, why we're spending time on this, and what do we hope to walk away with. Then there could be some info sharing, and info sharing is important if you have multiple teams, and those teams were also co-created and designed over the course of the preparation period during starters. So in info sharing, it could be info marked or some other way where people get to explore the options. So what kind of teams are there? What are the guiding principles? What are the boundaries? What is my personal profile? So what does my block look like? Which teams might be suitable for me? Where can I find most value or add most value? Hopefully a combination of those two. So info sharing is really having information transparent so people can self-educate. Hey, what are the options and which ones might be fitting for me? Self-selection. This is in 3 parts. There's a start round, a repeat, possible a repeat round, and a closing round. And this is we would advise you to, or we prefer to have smaller rounds and repeat them more often. Instead of saying, okay, for the next 1.5 hour, find out how you do this. But for example, the exercise we just did together, if it was a more complex exercise, I might also have stopped it after a few minutes and asked everyone, okay, take a step back, observe the system. What are we doing? So there's always a starting round if needed, and the system still has some flaws or things that could be optimized. You do repeat rounds, and there might be a closing round. And closing rounds might be around teams, for example, choosing their own leads, a team picking their own scrum master, a chapter deciding among them who will be the chapter lead or the chapter coach. So these kind of things you could do in a closing round when the team is kind of settled, but there's some decisions that need to be made within the team. The quick off is really about, all right, so based on what's needed for the company, your own preference and skill set, this is my new group or team or whatever we will be. Let's get to know each other. Let's make some first team agreements, etc., etc. And close the event is really about rounding up the day, celebrating maybe what happened, making sure that all the teams that were formed in some way can represent themselves, show back to the organization or the part that's involved. Oh, what happened here? So those are the things you see over here. And then I would like to invite you back to the same link we just shared, the Jamboard, to vote what we should zoom in on. Yeah, I think I count 5 with info sharing and 5 also with the start round of self-selection.
Yeah. I think you can also come.
And I see a very happy team in the lower right corner. Look at the shining team. Wonderful art.
All right. So in this case, we could start with the info sharing, and like we said, is if people are involved in the co-creation process, and you see that they already kind of know what is going on. But to assume that everything is also really the case, you need to provide more information. You could think about, okay, if we are creating new teams, right? Let's just take like a marketplace kind of thing where people can go around and talk about, okay, what's the purpose of each team, for example. Then you have a product owner, or you have a team lead or a manager or whatever, explaining about what is the purpose, which kind of skills do we need, just to get everybody in line again. What you often see is that management sends the whole information to the team members in advance. Please have a look at the 200 pages of PowerPoint for all the teams, and we will start the session in 2 days. Yeah, so that is really the case. If you do an event and you need to have that information, just make sure that everybody is involved in that and also has the opportunity to recap, to hear about what is actually going on. Yeah, so that's also the one part, is that you do a marketplace, like, okay, we are sending information, and the other part can be to make it the responsibility of the people. Like, if you have multiple teams, just make sure that people move around and stop at a point which they think, hey, this is interesting, I want to know more about this. Oh, you are creating a new mouse. That's interesting. I've always wanted to see how this is going to happen. Then you take it to the teams, because maybe I already know a lot about pens. I don't want to hear that. So I want to know more about the mouse, for example. So that's basically the information sharing. And it is, like you said, it's not mandatory. Basically because if it's not a complex organization, it's only 1 or 2 teams, for example, then you don't need the info sharing part if everybody has been involved in the process. But if they haven't, if it's complex, you have to choose between 6 teams or 12 teams, or if you're in a safe environment, the whole release train, for example, then maybe it's a good way to just summarize and get everybody in line in what is actually going on. Once you do that, then you can start your self-selection round. And this is basically, if you talk about the self-organization round at first, you need to give them some guidelines. You need to give them some clarity and goals on what to do. If in any case you have an event and you say, well, these are all posters here, and this is marketplace, and go ahead. Then you will create, what's on the left side is you create anarchy, because nobody knows what the goal is, what the purpose is, or whatever. So if you do this, if you do the self-select round, it needs to be clear on where the people can select on. On this slide here, or on this picture here, you see that the boundaries are already set. And you allow the people to just go around and based on their seniority and the teams they are in, it's quite clear how to self-select. And in the exercise which we did, we had the boundaries. So those were like, it's evenly divided in gender.
That's what the guiding principles.
The guiding principles.
Yeah.
The guiding principles, those were in green, and 4 to 5 in each team. And here is also like the boundaries. So we need to have these skills. We need to have these part of the organization or this team actually to really support it. Yeah. So that's basically about the self-selection starting round, just to make sure that everybody indeed knows how to self-select, what the boundaries are of self-selection in here.
For desserts, as it's quite small, we won't really do a vote this time, but we will shortly explain. It says here just start, continue, and round up. So I think we can explain them without having this up all the time.
Yeah.
let's just bounce them off one by one. So desserts, it's at start, and that is immediately after. So say the first week after your self-organization event, after the main course. This is an important question that you would already also do in the design phase. Do we do this event? Does it immediately take effect after? Our recommendation would definitely be yes. If you need time to prepare some things, make sure that you do them in the preparation up front. But the amount of energy, ownership, empowerment that we experience during an event, a self-selection event, is so immense. You do not want to lose out on that momentum and saying, oh, this is a wonderful organizational design. We'll implement it in 3 months. That's the most devastating thing you can do to make people believe, whoa, we're really onto a new culture with this company. We're really progressing to something that I'm actually proud of telling my friends that I work here. And whoa, the kind of things, one of the transformations, or one of the self-organization experiments, which was in a bigger transformation, at some point I walked out for some fresh air, and someone was there on the phone with his wife, and he was asking her for help. I need to choose between this or that, and I don't know. I never thought about this before, and he was kind of panicking, but comforted by his wife, who was helping him through the decisions that he didn't really have to make for the past 20 years. For 20 years, managers kind of guided his career path. They were always advising him on his next step. And this was the first time he was experiencing, oh shit, with great power comes great responsibility. I have to make a decision now that will influence at least my near future work. Oh my, and it was such a wonderful moment to be there to experience this from a short distance and notice what's going on. I walked up to him afterwards and had a short talk with him about it. And but in that moment, seeing it happen was a real realization of how intense this can be. And as I said, you want to keep that momentum. So the start thing in desserts is really about having this momentum and letting people step into it the next week already. But for that, some things need to happen. Teams might need new dashboarding, monitors, facilitation, stuff like that. Teams might need a place to sit together if it's a team that will be done near full time. Other things in which you can really support the thing to start going, they go into the start phase. Next up, continue.
Yeah, so after you have, like, you are all settled, right? You know exactly what to do next, and the self-selection is over. Everybody knows in which team it is. And the funny thing is okay, how do we continue after this? How do we make sure? How do we make sure that this is not just a one-time thing? Should we evaluate upon this, or also think about the coaching part? So yes, everybody now is in. Bless you.
There was a
everybody now is in teams. Maybe they have new roles. How are you going to guide them? So you really upfront, you really need to think about how to do that. And in some of the cases, also we mentioned in the exercise, not all the boundaries have been filled. We still miss a green eye colleague and hazel colleague. What are you going to do? So are we going to create new vacancies, for example? Those are all things that you need to discuss as well, and you need to think about when you do it, because nothing is worse than saying, people, you are in charge, you can do whatever you like, it's not permanent, and then all of a sudden don't do anything, because you know when you go into self-selection that chances are not every role will be fulfilled. So if you know that, just make sure that you also follow up on those promises, follow up on things. And if it's not possible in the beginning, and you already know it's not possible, don't allow the people to choose from it, basically. So that's the important part about the continue.
All right, and then the last part of desserts, round up, as you would do with a dinner. And round up is like cleaning the kitchen. It means looking at other loose ends, things we should take into account. But more importantly, it's also about how do we gather the information, the evaluation, the things that happened here. What can we really learn from it? If we want to do more events like this, what should we do differently next time? Do we actually feel comfortable of giving teams the agency, giving them the trust to maybe do this continuously? Do we offer people and teams a say into, for example, firing people? And it doesn't mean you can fire your colleague. What if your colleague is really not functioning or bogging down the team? Is there some way for you to start at least a process around it in solving it? And solving might be either team members switching teams, solving might be going into another course of action. So roundup is really about making sure how do we evaluate, but also as I said in the short overview, making an after movie. How do we capture the information here? How do we visualize it? Do we want to visualize all the teams that came out of the exercise? Where can other parts of the organization or other teams know how does this department work now? How does this cluster of teams work now? How are we organized now? Do you need a new org structure? Not necessarily. Do you need transparency in how you're structured? Absolutely. So this is the thing that you also explore then. What would be a proper structure for the way we are proper visualization for the way we are organized now. Those things all go into roundup, and they might lead to new things coming after that. But that I would say is for the starters of the next course.
Yeah, and I think that also answers the last questions. What about consistency in teams versus continuous self-organization in changing teams? Well, what we see happening is that once organizations do self-selection, it becomes a habit, because you not only change the way you think or the way you behave, but also the way you think. That the next time that manager comes in and says, well, here is Jordan, Jordan is a new team member, then the teams will say, hey, look, we like you, Jordan, but this is not the way we are going about it. So it becomes a new way of thinking, also about the autonomy that they have. And maybe that's also after the question, after dessert, what will most people be chewing on for self-organization? And I think what I have seen until now is, have I made the right choice? In the old days where managers could choose, it was like at least 1 year you have to be in the new team, because then it's the new evaluation round and you can tell if you like it or not. But in this case, it really feels like, yeah, have I made the right choice? That's, at least in my opinion, one of the biggest, what people are chewing on.
It's I saw save in one of the other questions we had to skip, and it's here again. I would take it one step higher and look more at the principles behind it. So I would not approach it from a set role and responsibilities perspective, but I would approach it much more from the personal skill set. So if your skill set, the things you've done in your study years, outside of the curriculum, previous projects, roles, or job occupations you had, build you a certain skill set. And that skill set might make you fit for a release train engineer in SAFe. It might also make your skill set fit enough to be a product owner in SAFe. So it's not about having a role assigned by the company, the way we approach self-organization. It's much more about, okay, with your skill set, is there enough overlap to step into a role? what kind of things do you need to learn to be able to be successful in that role on top of your current skill set? Which skills do you want to extend? And also, what do you bring? What do you bring to that skill? So, what kind of things are in your skill set that might make you a wonderful fit for a certain role? And this again, you can set this by putting the boundaries on certain roles. For example, this role is only allowed for people that have this domain knowledge or this skill set or this experience. And that way you avoid people picking up, oh, whatever they like. No, there's still an organizational purpose you have to fulfill. Let's round it up, looking at the time.
Okay. Yeah. Then the last question about fear of missing out.
We'll do that. Yeah, you have to miss out on this unless you keep hanging after 6 o'clock. That was too good not to make the joke. Sorry. All right.
Yeah. So this was our webinar. So thank you very much for attending and listening to us. And as you have noticed, that there are a lot more where this came from, because only looking at the exercise which we made about the self-selection, there was so much takeaways. We could talk for like the whole session and discuss how the human behavior is about, why do we do things the way we do, how does it impact organization. But we leave those topics for a different thing.
Also, there was an experiment for us. We experimented. Of course, with the webinar. And how was this format for you, Zerian?
Yeah, what I like about this one, we definitely had more interaction than before. And what I also found challenging, but also very, very good, is that you were in charge of what we are going to discuss here. There was. So that's what I loved very much. And I have also to say that when we have the setup here is that we have you in the gallery view, so we could see everybody, and I really appreciated that. It made it easier, at least for me, to know if what I'm saying, if it's coming true, if people are frowning or whatever, then means that maybe I should explain them.
Some non-verbal feedback by people taking the effort of having their camera on for 2 hours. That was wonderful, absolutely. And same for us. We're about to round up. As we said, thanks everyone for joining. This was an experiment for us, and we were glad some people also helped us look at the business experiment we've been running, and that is experimenting with pay what it's worth tickets. As we invest our knowledge, efforts, time, etc., into this webinar. So thanks an awful lot for the people who are willing to donate a bit to our efforts. If you feel this was way more value than you anticipated, or would like to didn't get to it up front because you didn't know the value yet, and would like to donate now, we have an option for that. Don't feel obligated, please, but if you can spare a coffee or a lunch, we would feel appreciated. As we said, for the people that want to share last things or have some more discussion, now would be the time to unmute.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one of the things was that you started off with the breakout rooms, and it was really awesome because you have the chance to talk to other people. And but we had I think a few minutes. We needed a few minutes more, I guess, because we were not finished talking. So that was awesome to start that way. So something I would like to share. Yeah.
Hopefully you put down the names to connect with those people afterwards if you have more to discuss.
Yeah, I already did.
Next time.
Sure. Excellent energizer, by the way.
Sorry?
The excellent energizer, the clapping of the hands. It's really a neat trick in the online thing.
It's the kind of exercise we could debrief on it for half an hour. There's so much in it, and now I kind of gave a large part away by saying, hey, this is about leadership, blah, 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 just because we have a strict time box in a webinar like this. But if I do it with real life teams, let them struggle, let them explore. And the thing that Martin added, oh, I didn't want to clap in this environment. That's a whole topic to debrief on in itself, right? The other thing, there's not really clear goal, but also the difference. Some people have their webcams on, others don't. Interesting to see the difference there. So how close do you need to be to a leader to see leadership? How close do you need to be to others to follow suit? So there's lots of stuff in there, and glad you liked it. I think you can read more about this exercise and comparable ones in the system thinking playbook. I think this one is also in there. Yeah. And there it's as well. The instructions are like half a page. The debrief is, I think, 4 or 5 pages for most exercises in there.
Okay. I still had a question I put on the chat. Been trying to use Delegation Poker as a communication tool between teams, or maybe regardless of self-organization, between teams and management of, hey, what is our expectations of what freedom do we want to give, and what do we want to delegate? Where does it fit in here?
Well, if I look at it, I think Jordan is now getting the back. But I have used Delegation Poker in the self-selection part as well, and that's in the preparation phase. That can be used to set up the boundaries, for example. So okay, so what can you choose? That's part of it, but also after in the event itself, you can use it to determine the need. Okay, so now we have a new team. How are we going to do this? So are we allowed to hire, or are we allowed to remodel our new office, for example? So
to give everyone the right context, goodbye, thanks. Delegation Poker is a card set, and you usually have a whole bunch of them. And there's also apps, by the way, if you have to do it online. And with certain statements, people put up a card. And the cards say things like tell. So this is not up for negotiation. I, as a manager, as a leader, will tell people what to do. They don't have much to say in this regard because it's about blah, blah important. Next one is sell, and that one is I will try and sell it to them. So okay, instead of telling them, I will take them a bit along. And it goes to consult, agree, advise. And advice, you already see it shifting. So advice, I will advise, but they decide. So as a manager, it's important that maybe you're somehow involved in decision making, but you're not the one making the decision. And it goes, so advise, inquire, and delegate, and I will fully delegate is indeed, no, we'll get to that in a second. I will fully delegate is really about, choice is all yours. I trust you, you have access to information, you'll make a proper decision there. No need for me to be there as a formal leader or manager. And as Sirian just explained, it might be really about having lots of say, but I think it goes on every level of self-organization ladder. In the lower levels, you could do things about team decisions. Can one person decide to change something in a tool, for example? Does it need a peer review? So you can also use it at different levels. At the team level, hiring and firing, budget spending could also be topics.
Which tools to use?
Yeah, could also be topics for which you use Delegation Poker as a tool to see, hey, are we aligned on the way we make decisions and where are they made? Hope that answers the question.
Any other question that you want to discuss?
Let's see. I have to be a chef now. All right, Roderick. More chef, more better. Is Roderick still here? Okay, well.
That is recorded.
My enthusiasm was real.
the fear of missing out. I think that's a very important one, because we how do I put it this way? A way to avoid fear of missing out is to make things as transparent as possible. Of course, we did one experiment with Scrum Master teams, and we said, all right, so first create a team and bond with each other. And then we told them, okay, now that you have bonded, think really about, is it the best choice for the organization, or should you should you switch? We had three teams, and the energy that they had within the team, the first team that was created, was so high, nobody wanted to go to the other team anymore. So yeah, so in that way, we were not being very transparent about what is going on. But it does happen, fear of missing out, and that's where management comes in as well. You need to really talk to the people who are involved, and also not only before, during, but also after the event, especially in the continue part. In that part, make sure that managers also have discussions with the team members or Scrum Masters or whatever, just to make sure, how do you feel? And that's something you should think about. Are we going to design that individually, or are we going to design that like we come back after 3 months, we have retrospective event to see how it's going on?
An important thing in this regard that I've noticed is you can take away the feeling of missing out, but you can help in addressing the feeling. And what helps a lot there is helping people in creating the transparency they need for their decisions. So instead of feeling, oh, I'm missing out on all these awesome things now, make it transparent. What's the impact of the choice you're making? And for example, I think I'm not sure about the exact roles, but at one of the experiments we ran, there was an architect who wanted to shift to UX. So there was something there, and oh, it was really cool, and he didn't want to miss out. But he had some knowledge that at least the way the organization was structured, or the way he was behaving in the previous organization. No use to put any blame or look at it, but the situation now was he had some knowledge that he was the sole knowledge holder of. So by helping this surface and helping him see, hey, the first step for you would be to share that knowledge with other people who have some expertise in the architecture field. Then you open up the way for some of the other options instead of missing out. Oh, but I would like to be that, and now I can be, and now I feel so bad about it. So helping them get more transparency about the decisions is helping okay, I'm not missing out. There are some steps that I need to take to get there. And also maybe in the process finding out, because then you approach your current field in a different way. Oh, you start collaborating with others, sharing knowledge, getting new inspiration and insights in that way. And it might be, oh, I don't want to miss out on architecture. I actually rekindled my feel for this, and I might even want to stay here. So at least that's one of the practical examples I saw where I thought, lovely how this pans out.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Todd.
And feel free to contact us if you have any questions, upcoming days or weeks or whatever.
Of course.
You know how to reach us.
We're already connected. Sirian is one LinkedIn away, so.
Yeah. All right, awesome.
All right, Todd. Okay. Ciao, ciao.
See you.